All right. Hello. My name is Joseph Torito. I'm a Metals 2 student, and I was an engineering president of Team Paradox for 2 years. I have a lot of Onshape experience, so I'm here to teach people how to make a simple assembly with a skateboard rail for the metals classes. To start, you're going to go up to create and hit a document. That's going to make the actual place that you're going to create your skateboard rail. Just going to title it whatever you want, skateboard rail, and then we'll say put your name in it as well. Then you're going to go up in the left, click sketch, go to the front plane, um, and then hit N to see normal to the plane that you're looking at. You hold middle click to move around like this, and you hold right click to move and pan like this. So if you left click on the front face again and you just hit N, it'll get you back to this. And it's always important to make sure that you're sketching in 2 dimensions, because if you're not, you'll end up confusing yourself with the dimensions that you use. Um, so here we're gonna just hit G and make a rectangle off of the center. We're gonna dimension it to be very standard uh, stock size of 1.5 by 1.5 inches using the dimension tool or hovering on D and clicking it. Left click on the dimension on the line that you want, and then off to hit the actual sketch entity, then type in 1.5 and dimension this side by left clicking on it, dragging off and left clicking again for 1.5. From there, you're just going to go up into the top left here and you're going to have extrude, also with the hotkey Shift E. I'm not a skater, but I'm going to go with 48 inches for this one. It seems like a reasonable length for a skateboard rail. So you're going to look at your new extrude and say the depth is going to be changed to 48 inches. And it should look something like this when you're done. Then once you have this done, you have the body of the rail, but it's not hollow like you would get with actual tube stock. So we're going to make a new sketch on this face here. So just left click and then hit the sketch button again. Then same as before, left click on it and hit N to make it normal to that face. Then you're going to hold, instead of G for a corner rectangle, you're going to want to hit R, because that's going to give you a center point rectangle. And we're going to use some constraints, some more fancier high level stuff to make it much easier to dimension the entire design. You're going to hover over the midpoint of this line, and you're going to see this orange box show up with this little constraint called the midpoint constraint. You're going to go down to the center just about, and then you're going to do the same thing. It's going to go away, and that's fine. But you're going to go to do the same thing over here on the right side, and then drag this over to the middle. It should pop up like this, but if you end up not getting one of these dotted lines, you can just hover over them again, and they should eventually show up. Then you're just going to drag it out like this, and then we're going to dimension this to be a 16th of an inch, 1/16 from both sides. And then you're going to same both sides, 1/16 or 0.0625. Then we're going to go back up to the extrude again, but unlike the original, it's going to try to add something to this extrude. We actually want to remove from the extrude. And Onshape's a pretty smart software. It understands that the only way to remove is by going this direction, so it should automatically switch it and then go from the blind down to the through all. And it should give you this nice big hole through the whole thing. And now this looks, a lot more like tube stock, which is perfect. So sure, we have the rail here, but we don't have any actual support, so it doesn't look realistic. We got to get those final bits in. So we're going to do a sketch, and then on the bottom here, we're going to click on this plane, and then once again hit N to make it easy enough to understand how your sketch is going to come out. Now you're hovered over the center point rectangle. You're going to want to drop this down and either hit G or go to corner rectangle again. If you have a center point rectangle and you start drawing it, it's going to come from off of this line and it's just going to be a huge mess. Instead, you're going to Control Z that and go down to a corner rectangle and draw it from length to length. Then to define this, you're going to want to make, you already know that this is, no matter what, going to be fully defined as 1.5 inches. So to make it a similar square stock, you're just going to hit E, which is the equals constraint, left click this and left click these, and it'll fully define it as 2. From here, you're just going to extrude this out. It's immediately going to prompt you with adding to it. It thinks that these should be one solid body part. And while that is what you're going to get to eventually, for now, you want it as separate pieces. So we're going to select new and say this should be 8 inches off the ground. Um, and then you're just going to, if all of these settings look like this, it should pop up exactly like this, and then you hit the check mark. From here, we're going to make one more sketch onto this plane right here. Hit N once again so that we're in this 2D version. And then the same as how we made this hollow out over here, we're going to go back and use a center point rectangle. Zoom back in and say the same center points that we want right here, dragging down to the middle, and then the center point that we want on this side, drag back to the middle. Left click on that center when you see both of those dotted lines coming up, and then same as before, a 16th dimension with the dimension tool. I'm hitting D on the keyboard for a hotkey. 0.0625, the same as D for dimension, clicking both of these two lines as 1/16. Then we're just going to extrude this. It's going to once again try to add it. You want to remove. It flips through, it understands, and you just say through all. If you change your merge scope on accident, it will end up making a big hole through here if you select this in your merge scope. So make sure you don't do that, or else it'll just look stupid and you'll fail the assignment. So then we just hit check on the extrude, and you should have this nice little layer like this deleted from it. Now the final sketch that we're going to make, once again, just hitting this button up here or Shift S, we're going to left click on this face, specifically this orange highlighted bit right here. Anything else and it won't work the same way. Then hit N one last time and do one more center point rectangle. Off of this, you're going to do a similar operation to the last, 2, 3 now? Get this center point up here, drag down to the middle, get this center point over here, drag over to the middle. You get these orange lines, and then you're just going to define this out in the middle of nowhere for now. You're going to hit escape to get out of your corner or center point rectangle, and then to make this line the same size, to make this line the same size as this 1.5 by 1.5 bar, we're going to hit E again and then just left click right here. And that's going to make it so that this is centrally defined off of that point. And it should behave like this if you try to drag this, this blue point in the corner. I'm just going to define this to be something reasonable, 5 inches, we'll say. And then I'm going to extrude that out, but that looks a little stupid. So we'll say if you're making this in real life, you'd probably be welding in 1/4 inch plate steel, so 0.25 for your depth down here. But once again, it's trying to do an add instead of a new or a remove. So you want this to be a new piece because in real life, this would end up being a separate thing that you're welding on. So just for the sake of reality, we're going to make it new. So now that we have all of these parts, your part studio should look exactly like this. If not, you did something wrong. Ask Mr. B or a Metals 2 student in your class. Then from there, there should be an assembly that auto-generates into every document that you make in CAD, especially in Onshape. You're going to click on here, and then this is a big, scary blank space, but it's not to fret. You're going to go up to the top left and insert the entire part studio that you just created by putting it right here. But you'll obviously realize that you're missing some pieces. So we're just going to drag. Actually, we're not going to worry about those yet. They'll be important later. But don't worry about bringing more in because you're gonna just make a copy of things. Okay, so here's the really helpful part of CAD when you end up getting to industry or robotics or anything actually really interesting and cool about it. These things are just sitting here now, but I can drag them apart and they're entirely separate on their own. They have no relations or mates to one another. So what we're going to do is hit M, or this button up here for mate connector, um, and you're going to select first this piece right up here. The only thing you can really learn about assemblies and the thing to practice with these is holding shift once you've gotten to a face. So if I hover on this face and I hold shift, it doesn't matter where I put my cursor. It's always going to show up. It's only going to show these mate spots. It's only going to let me hit this face and places on this face. I could look over on this side and still it'll only let us go there. So we're going to start with getting one of these middle edges right here as one of the mate connectors. And then we're going to go to this slightly more annoying piece, zoom in so that you're making sure your cursor is on this specific face of this gray. Hold shift, zoom out, and see how it's on the center. That's exactly where you want. It might come up hitting through and into your piece. If you see that, you can just play with the axes that it's hitting, and then it should be teed up perpendicular like this, which is exactly what you want. You may notice that this is very obviously not set up somewhere towards the middle of the rail, which is exactly where we want it. So what we're going to do is put an offset in the mate. So you see that there's the X, Y, and Z that you have here, and conveniently at the center of the mate, there's also an X, Y, and Z. So the direction we want to change in this case is going to be Y. It may be different for you relative to how you end up designing your parts. So I'm going to type in 10 inches for how I want it changed. And so luckily that was the right direction, but you can also do a negative 10 if it ends up being the wrong direction. So we're going to go 10, hit enter. Everything looks good. That doesn't look too off. So I'm just going to hit the check. And then from there, we're going to do something really similar with this blue piece. It should automatically have another mate selected up for you. If not, you just hit M or this control key up here, hover over this face, hold shift to make sure you don't lose it, click on the center, zoom out, go back over to the gray piece, zoom in a bunch to make sure you're on this highlighted face, hold shift, zoom out, click right here, and then boom, you got something that's unfortunately meshing in the wrong way. So we're gonna, same as we did on the last one, flip the primary axis, and that looks pretty good. So now we're gonna hit the check, and then we're gonna actually get out of this mate by hitting that little X. So now we have a fully functional skate rail minus half of the non-rail supports. But they are touching and they're all going to move together as one unit because of these fastened mates that we put together. So what you're going to do to make a simple repetition of this leg is just left click on both of them, control C on your keyboard, or right click, and one of these is copy two items, and then paste two items. And the thing that it does, which is really nice, is in this drop down, it has these two mates connected. So if you move these two together, it's going to move the exact same way that that did. So for the final mate that we're going to do for the skateboard rail, we're going to hit M or this button up here, hit this very repeated face, hold shift, go to the center, left click, zoom back out. Want to make sure that it's on the same face as the original rail post, and then make sure that it's specifically held shift and in the center here again. And then we're just going to do the exact same process as the last time. Hit the offset. It's once again in the Y direction down here. So we're going to change the Y to be even to the same as the other side, which we used as 10. Oh no, though, the 10 is in the wrong direction. Just make that a negative. And then hit the check mark, hit negative 10, enter the check mark, and it should be all good, and you have your finalized skateboard rail.